Well, we just had a massive piece of news drop right at the end of the week, and it has to do with Netflix acquiring or attempting to acquire, announcing their plans to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery in a deal valued at more than $82 billion. I think it's the biggest deal we've ever seen, or acquisition we've ever seen. And this is massive just across the board for the entertainment sector, but also for gaming because, well, the sheer number of franchise and intellectual properties tied into this, but also gaming studios that are involved here. And we're going to take a look at all of this here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. So let's take a look. This is over on Netflix's website where they posted this press release saying Netflix to acquire Warner Bros. Following the separation of Discovery Global for a total enterprise value of $82.7 billion, equity value of $72 billion. My understanding there's some debt that is wrapped up in this deal. So the way this is working is Warner Bros. You can say they have like Warner Bros. Discovery Global or Discovery Global here. And Warner Bros., we've talked about them before, how they were trying to shop around their gaming division. They were seeing if anyone really want to, I guess, take their studios off their hands without necessarily taking all the intellectual properties with them. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that because then you're just onboarding a ton of developers, especially in a time now where all we're hearing about are layoffs. And really, if you were going to take on the number of studios they have, you probably also wanted intellectual properties, which might include DC and Mortal Kombat and stuff and Harry Potter, but not necessarily the case or what they were looking for. They were kind of looking for everything. Like if you're gonna take those IPs from us, you got to take everything, just about. Now the reason they split the company up is because there was like $40 billion of debt, which still exists, but it's not going to be as interesting or enticing to a Netflix or any of these big companies if you're also taking on that kind of debt. But they're going to take some. It seems about $10 billion. So they do mention the cash and stock transaction valued at $27.75 for a total of $82.7 billion with equity value of $72 billion. So yeah, just over $10 billion subtracted there in debt, which I guess means that the $30 billion or so would then go over to the spin-off company, really new company they make. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to keep all of their network stations. They have a lot of like TV stations and stuff that they want to hold on to. And the word there is that they may try to then merge that in with another massive company. So kind of piecemealing a bit here, although they've really only had to split into two because here comes Netflix with more than $82 billion to make all this happen. And this is, of course, on Netflix's page. So they're working to puff this up a bit. They do say, okay, it's expected to be completed Q3 2026. Saying that this acquisition brings together two pioneering entertainment businesses, combining Netflix's innovation, global reach, and best-in-class streaming service with Warner Bros.' century-long legacy of world-class storytelling. Beloved franchises, shows, and movies such as The Big Bang Theory still pulls a lot of numbers, by the way, on TV, even with just reruns. The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, The Wizard of Oz, and the DC Universe will join Netflix's extensive portfolio, including Wednesday, Money Heist, and so on here. So they just start reading off shows. So this becomes interesting because Netflix is like the biggest streaming service in terms of, so they kind of rank them by subscriber count because that's your revenue driver right there. So who's bringing in the most revenue? Well, it's Netflix because they have more than 300 million subscribers. That's a lot. If you even look at Prime, and remember Amazon does tie that into your Prime like subscription. So if you have it for shipping and stuff on their website or Luna or whatever, they tie all that together. All right. And that has like 200 million. So when you look at that, you're like, wow, okay, Netflix is already out pretty far ahead of the next largest one. Well, Warner Bros. With HBO Max had 128 million. They were like third, or they're right there with Disney. I think them and Disney are very close together. Disney Plus is like 130 million or something like that. So when you consider the fact that third or fourth, we'll say, would then join into Netflix, and what does that do with Netflix? Well, if you just add those numbers together, it's 428 million or 429 million. It's not going to be that much because there would be some redundancy there. I'm sure there are plenty of people who have both HBO Max and they have Netflix. Well, if you're merging everything together, including the content, you don't need two subscriptions then. That's one of the reasons I think Netflix will probably keep them separate for a bit and try to figure out what to do there, especially with the subscription pricing. Maybe they bundle stuff together, give you a discount. But the point is, Netflix will be absorbing a major competitor in the marketplace. I mean, I guess a substantial one, to where they would then just by eliminating HBO Max, that competitor, they would shoot up to I'll say almost half of the entire market. And it'd probably be like 43 or 44%. Again, it's going to depend on redundancies of these subscription services. So immediately you have this massive entity becoming even bigger in the market, right? Now, look, Disney Plus, and people aren't going to feel bad for Disney. People aren't going to feel bad necessarily for Amazon and stuff, but it is something where, so if you're shopping around a show or anything like that, you, of course, we go into many different services that have the kind of money to front for these shows, or even you can say actors, actors, whoever, right? There's just more opportunity then. If that's the case, when there's different competitors that might outbid each other and stuff, that's just one less bidder than on the market. So it is kind of a trickle down effect there as well. But as they work to control more and more of the marketplace, it does bring up the idea of a monopoly in the streaming service. Now, here's the thing. I don't think they'd be looked at as one because Amazon, Disney, they're massive, and they're still there. Now, Hulu is I guess that's being brought into Disney eventually. I keep seeing it thrown around, but they still have that Hulu service ready to charge your account. So who knows there? But with that, Apple TV and stuff, those are smaller services compared to these larger ones. But with this deal, when you think about how all of a sudden Netflix would have the DC universe, like that would just come under Netflix, and they can then really battle it out with Disney as they have Marvel. And I figure DC would become a very big part for them because it is that big competitor that would match that for Disney. And with that in mind, what would happen with gaming? So here's the thing, right? WB, as I mentioned, hasn't exactly seen their gaming division as super important. I mean, it's important to them because they were successful with Hogwarts Legacy. That worked out really well. But we have seen a lot of stumbles too with like Suicide Squad and whatever happened with Batman, and it wasn't great. The word was that they were going back to the well and they were going to try to make a new Batman Arkham style game, like a more traditional one. But then we hear that maybe it is live service again. So who knows? But either way, you start to think about how many of these gaming studios would then go under Netflix, Rocksteady, NetherRealm, of course, Mortal Kombat or Injustice. You think about all the Lego stuff that's been going on with TT Games, you have WB Games Montreal, you have Avalanche Software, and they have a bunch of support studios and mobile studios in like Boston, San Diego, New York, and others. So my thing with that is when you look at Netflix and what they do with gaming right now, which they do have it as part of their subscription, but it's not seen as, I feel like, very important. And they tie it to mobile. That's the big thing there. So they're not really known as, oh, here comes Netflix with the next big blockbuster gaming release for the PlayStation 5 or even on PC or something. No, it's like, hey, Red Dead Redemption, that's going to come to mobile phones. And if you have Netflix, you can download it. That was kind of a cool benefit to have, but it's not some massive release that you stop the presses. We gotta get this out there. So I'm wondering how they're going to view some studios that are known to cost hundreds of millions of dollars for some of their projects. So it's like, does Netflix look at that and go, oh, well, yeah, obviously we need to spend upwards between all these studios $1 some odd dollars for these different projects that are ongoing. The concern would be that Netflix would cut back and the gaming side would be the place that they would really start pulling from. And while Rocksteady didn't exactly turn in a great release of Suicide Squad, I would like to see one more from them just to say, okay, did they learn their lesson from it? Are they now thinking, let's go back to what we do best with something like a new Batman Arkham game. Let's go try to make that Superman game, something like that. I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 seemed to have fallen off a bit. I think it was still a cool release. It sold well for the most part, and people have been calling for a new Injustice game. So maybe they could have done something there. Monolith Productions is gone, so they WB helped them out there, got rid of that one quick for them. And like the Lego games, those do very, very well. So I'm curious how Netflix runs that whole division. But with that in mind, a lot of people, of course, are discussing the idea of the amount of IP that Netflix would control. Harry Potter being a big one, like what happens with the next Hogwarts Legacy game, The Matrix, Dune, Mad Max. I mean, it's crazy how much stuff Netflix would then own and what happens to theatrical releases. That's the other big thing, right? So with this deal, they are getting a lot of people on the record trying to figure out what their plans are. Oh, and we did have confirmation, here it is, that a Warner Bros. Discovery spokesperson has confirmed that Warner Bros. Games is included in the transaction, just in case people were wondering. That is confirmed. But they have been getting more and more people on the record for this deal as to what the plans are, like CEOs and stuff. So for like Netflix, for example, they're talking about how they will continue theatrical releases for all the WB movies and stuff that are already in the works, all right? But they don't really go much beyond that. It seemed like maybe the window would shrink down between theatrical release and then home release. And of course, theaters aren't exactly excited to hear that. I do wonder, though, about the average consumer out there who isn't huge into the theater, because I feel like they would look at that and go, well, that's great news. I don't have to worry about going to the theater and spending with a family of five, $50 to $100 to go out and see the latest movie or something for DC, right? Or the latest Harry Potter movie. They do all that or whatever, right? So that is something. While there are people, of course, who are really into going to the movie theater, there are also a lot of people who just like staying home. So that could be pumped up as a positive, actually, on Netflix's side. But I mentioned it's not through yet. This is something that they are putting out as a press release, making it sound very formal and that it's done. Not the case. It still has to go through regulators, and the theatrical release, the control of all these IPs and stuff, these will all be brought up as problematic for the marketplace. I don't know if they can argue monopoly because there are so many competing platforms still, but it's certainly easy to argue that Netflix is becoming massive and becoming this major entity in the marketplace. And, back in the day, remember, I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but years and years ago, the idea was cutting the cord with cable and picking and choosing which subscription service you want to go to that was $7 or $8 a month. And there are so many to pick from. And now they are legitimately just consolidating down to a few. Because even the amount of money that these companies burn to keep this content farm going is crazy. So I feel like even the smaller ones out there, it can't be easy for them to keep putting this kind of content. If you're not Apple backing Apple TV, it's just going to be difficult, right? So it's an interesting time right now. Either way, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.